George Washington Carver National Monument. It closes at 5 p.m. There's actually a few trails over there as we came in. This is a national park, which we keep talking about. That's impressive. Makes me wonder how many national parks are in Missouri. Scientist, educator, and humanitarian. He was born into slavery. Moses Carver bought George's mother.
And so what we have outside is the foundation of this homestead. And so this, so everything that we know by Carver is everything that he was told, because we don't have a lot of his early childhood. He says that he was born towards the end of the Great Civil War, but we have no birth certificate to prove when he was exactly born. So we think it was around July of 1864 when he was born. And he was kidnapped, both him and his mom were kidnapped when he was just a baby. His mom was never found, but he was, and he was brought back. And so him and his brother Jim ended up staying here, George until 1876, and Jim we're not 100% sure. We do know that Jim eventually ended up moving to Seneca, and he ended up dying in Seneca of smallpox.
Oh.
And then George was told that his dad was a slave on another farm who died in a logging accident. So he's best known for creating over 300 types of peanut products. But he worked with the farmers he encouraged them to rotate their crops, and he encouraged them to plant soybeans and peanuts, because after the Civil War ended and the cotton crop plummeted, the soil was in such bad shape that the farmers needed to restore it. And so he encouraged them to plant crops that they weren't used to planting, and so he also then created the market. So 300 peanut products, 200 sweet potato products, and about 100 soy products.
Wow.
And all of that
and creating those products, like, I'm not grasping what you mean by that. Like, you take corn to make oil or something.
Yeah. So so what I'll give you the peanuts, because those are the ones I work with the most, and
right.
I can tell you about 2 of the sweet potato products and 1 soy product. So with the peanut, it wasn't really a big market in the United States when he first was encouraging the farmers to plant them.
To revitalize the soil.
Yeah, and so he ended up so you can take the peanuts, you can shell them and grind raw peanuts and grind them up into a powder.
Okay.
And then you add water, and then you mix the water and the powder, and it creates peanut milk. So it created an alternative milk, and then he sent that to the Congo, and then because there was a tribe that was dying of sleep sickness.
So that would be the humanitarian.
Yes. And then those same shells that he took off the peanut, you can then grind it up into a pulp and flay it out flat, and then let it dry, and you get peanut paper, and you can get ink.
Wow.
I think it's from the skins, because they're brown most of the time, and so they would add a brownish color to them. So he created an ink, and he also created, it was a massage oil that was peanut based that helped polio patients but didn't cure polio. So it helped them walk again.
Wow.
So
we came late in the day, and there's 2 stories of a museum in there. I really appreciate her taking the time to tell me about him quickly, because I know I heard about him in high school, but I couldn't tell you anything about him. So she told me the 2 most important places are behind the building, and down this road is his birthplace, and down this road is the bus. Here's something said about, he said, a quote. Yeah, it is a really nice trail, but oh, it's too hot, especially for the dogs. That he spent most of his time in Tuskegee, Alabama at the university where he did most of the things. So there, if you want to learn more about him, there's more there. But I guess this little box is where he was born. What an orphan chooses to forget and remember. Sometime near the end of the Civil War, a slave was born here in a cabin. His mother, Mary, named the baby her second son, George. Moses Carver had purchased Mary as an enslaved person in 1855 when she was about 13 years old. Years of violence and guerrilla war had terrorized settlers here on the frontier, Missouri-Kansas border. According to Moses Carver, when raiders found no cash at his farm, they carried off Mary and her baby. Imagine the fear and hopelessness that must have overcome Mary. And Moses asked a local Union scout, John Bentley, to recover his stolen property. Bentley returned with a very sick George, but Mary had disappeared, and Carver rewarded Bentley with a $300 racehorse. In George's later memory of this story, he focused on how Moses had made special efforts to get him back. To George, this seemed the first tangible indication that he was a special person destined to accomplish much in his life. So this is a small house. Wow. I don't know if this is the actual wood from back then, but that is a small place to live. I think she said that this is the first national monument for a black person in the nation. I think this is, what's that's important for
Butterflies?
monarch butterflies.
Yeah.
I will keep trying to grow some in my yard and it won't grow. This is a neat park on a cooler day. It'd be really cool. He looks like such a friendly guy. I think I pushed the button.
The land about us here, with an abundance of streams, woodlands, fields, and wildlife, provided young George with his first schooling and instilled within him a deep love of nature, a belief in God's universal design and the power of individuals to control their destiny. This philosophy, developed during the endless wanderings of a young child through forests and meadows, is expressed by Carver himself during his closing remarks at the 59th commencement address at Selma University in 1942.
I close with this bit of poetry, author unknown, entitled Equipment. Figure it out for yourself, my lad. You've all that the greatest of men have had. 2 arms, 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 eyes, and a brain to use if you would be wise. With this equipment they all began. So start to the top and say, I can. Look them over, the wise and great. They take their food from a common plate. And similar knives and forks they use. With similar laces they tie their shoes. The world considers them brave and smart. But you've all they had when they made their start. You can triumph and come to steal. You can be great if you only will. You're well equipped for what fight you choose. You've legs and arms and a brain to use. And the man who has risen great deeds to do began his life with no more than you. You are the handicap you must face. You are the one who must choose your place. You must say where you want to go, how much you will study the truth to know.
That's cool.
God has equipped you for life, but he lets you to decide what you want to be. The man must furnish the will to win. So figure it out for yourself, my lad. You are born with all that the great have had. with your equipment, they all began. Get hold of yourself and say, I can.
Get hold of yourself and say, I can. I remember the name. It's milkweed. It's so beautiful, and the butterflies require it to live. Why a national monument? Not only is it 10 minutes till closing, it's 92 degrees out here, feels like 98, and it's too hot to walk around, especially with the dogs. So here's a map of the trail, and we were in the visitor center. We went down to the birthplace, went back to the bust, but you can see all the trails you can walk. I bet you on a fall day this would be, or a spring day, this would be great. There's a Carver spring, there's a boy Carver statue, and all the way over here is where Moses Carver, his owner, lived. So he was born here, and that's pretty far away from where his owner's house was. So there's a picture in this brochure of the statue if you were to go to that, and it talks about how this place inspired him to do all of his science work